everyone to the regular Board of Directors business meeting. We have a full board here today, so we have a quorum, so I will officially call this meeting to order. Again, I would remind everyone that the board meeting is being videotaped, and if you step forward to speak, you will be recorded. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda? John? Okay. And Bob, you second? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. Before getting into the regular board meeting here, would like to acknowledge one of our longtime volunteers who actually just walked into the room, Eleanor Rodnansky of the Landscape Committee. Eleanor, could you step up here, please? Ah, I thought you said she was here. Okay. Well, I can tell you a joke. Maybe we'll go on to, let's see what I can go back to my agenda and see if we can do something else for a second.
Somebody got an Academy Award that was in the rest of 1 year.
Yes.
Who was that?
Well, I hate to start the next item. It's going to take about 15 minutes. We wanted to get... Okay, let's go ahead with the regular board meeting at this time. Item number 3, burger improvement. Bob Giddings will give a presentation right now. He's indicated it should take about 15 minutes. As you know, Bob's committee has been working on developing potential possible plans for the improvement of our burger center from minor improvements to possibly tearing it down completely and rebuilding it. So this is the first time he's come before us with, I think, some significant information, and I'd like to turn it over to Bob at this point.
Thank you, Frank. The mics are working quite well today. This is an update on the committee's work thus far, and I want to tell you we are not coming today before you with a recommendation to the board, and that's who this presentation is geared for more than the general public. Something for the general public should be in much more detail at a later date when there's more information. But we thought this is the best venue to update the board here at the board meeting. The first thing I'd like to point out are the volunteers on this particular committee. We've been working together now for probably over 10 months. And each of the people you see up there have taken on specific jobs and done specific things to garner more information to help the committee and thus the board at a later date with coming to a decision or decisions about how to update the Burger Auditorium. So I'm probably the only one in the universe who really knows how much each of these individuals has done and given of their time. And in addition to Herm and Andy's work on the board, they've been invaluable on the committee along with the other committee members. They really have. So I think there's much to be said for these wonderful people. The first thing the board should know is that we gathered information from these sources. These were the major sources of data collection. The burger users, approximately 31 burger user groups, an often used catering firm, a HERES survey that was forwarded to us by that group, and emails received from the general public through our improvedburger@gmail.com email site. Secondly, the 2015 Oakmont survey input and the committee data and discussion from that survey. Thirdly, the Access report, which was done back in December of 2012. This was a forensic report, and I bet everybody here has heard of this many times before. But Access pulled in MFT Consulting and JDB Mechanical also to detail many of the findings and concerns and deficiencies regarding this building we're in today and some of its systems. The third major source of information came from code requirements, as mentioned in the Access report, and I'll speak later of that, and later specified by our professional architects. You know, I forgot to thank two other people when I was mentioning the committee members. That is Kat out of our OVA office. If it wasn't for her, we wouldn't be looking at these slides today. And ditto for Brad, who made the hookup here possible and readable. So thank you both. From the data sources I mentioned above, the committee and the architects from Argologic of Santa Rosa assembled a list of elements of the Burger Auditorium that needed to be addressed and potentially updated. And I'm going to show each one of those on our list of elements. Remember elements, and please memorize all 19 or 20 of these. I'll refer back to them later. But we all know about the flooring and the dance floor problems we've had earlier. The kitchen and a possible update there, our meeting spaces and how they're being intruded upon by some storage and what to do with them. The very old and original HVAC that's here, the lighting and its pluses and minuses, what to do with the fireplace, how to make the stage a better performance stage. How do we tackle storage? Is it through policy only, or do we look at it physically also? What about the decor and appearance? Do we update it? Entrance and exits and entrances, very, very important, especially when we come to the codes. We still have the old single pane windows, as beautiful and as big as they are, but they're not very energy efficient. Stage access, we're looking at some other codes there, but we're thinking ADA. The entry doors, how they're as old as the glass, and do they serve the purpose? Audio-visual equipment, we've been putting money into AV here at Burger for quite some years, and we have something that works, obviously. Do we need it updated? Do we need it centralized? What needs to be done there? We have partition walls on this side. They're old, they're original, they're wooden, they're not mechanized, and they're somewhat sound resistant. We have none on that side if we wanted to use that space separately from the main auditorium. The bathrooms, are they adequate for the occupancy load here, and do they meet ADA standards? A lobby, a lot of the residents and clubs and activities that use this auditorium said they could really, a lobby would really be helpful to separate those coming and going from an activity that was going on here. Like right now, somebody's opening the door, and if this was an important announcement, or in fact, it's one of our good volunteers that's just coming in. The capacity of it, does it need to be enlarged? And the acoustics. It seems not only the groups that play here on amplified instruments, but those with acoustic instruments, like the classical series that occurs here, are not served well by the stage and the acoustics of the auditorium. So a lot of users said, would you look at that? Now there are 5 conceptual design options, and I want to stress these are conceptual because you'll see some diagrams later, and it's conceptual. These are not drawn out, this is what we're going to do, or this is how big this is going to be, or this is how much we're going to shrink this or improve that. They're conceptual. But anyway, there were 5 options, and we think we knew pretty much this from the very beginning. One was just do a cosmetic update. Paint it, maybe new drapes, maybe a few new lighting fixtures. Nothing much at all, don't spend much money. And in doing that, we wouldn't incur any code improvements. That wouldn't trip a building permit. You can paint inside and change a few light fixtures without pulling a city permit. The second would be to modernize the existing configuration. And from the architects, we got an A and B on that. But that would trip some codes too, and we'd have to update something. So you go from 1 to 2, and you're getting into a lot more money. The third option was to reconfigure and modernize the auditorium. The fourth, expand the auditorium and modernize. And expand could mean many things. We'll get to that in a minute. And the fifth option that's always there is build a new auditorium and replace this one. Now, all of those of you who memorized the 1920 design elements know that they're on the right-hand column that's easily read. And across the top, that equally easily read, are those 5 options we just went through. We put that on a matrix, and there are actual numbers in that matrix, but those numbers, first of all, you can't read them, and secondly, you don't need to. That was a process the committee went through to try to put some weight and priorities to the different elements and which elements would need to be upgraded under which options. And you can see some blank spaces in the matrix. One that goes all the way across is insulation. We just didn't bother talking much about that because whatever we do, we're going to better insulate it. It's just going to be done. So we didn't spend any time on that. Some others, though, in the first column, and that column actually says cosmetic update that you can't read. There are some things that we wouldn't do, a lot of things we wouldn't do to certain elements. And as you move to the right, and you get to option 4, all the elements come into play. And of course, therefore, codes and more things are done, and it's expanded, and that entails the most cost. And the last one on the right actually says a new building. And of course, all those elements would be incorporated into something like that if that's the way a board or a future board would go. But again, this is just an update of where we are. No recommendations. The next slide will inform you of the areas identified by the architects that will have to be addressed to bring Berger into compliance with current city building codes. It is important to note that any updating of the Berger, more than just a cosmetic update, would trigger compliance via the permitting process. This one is a little clearer to read, but the red circles indicate on this exactly where the code compliance, what codes would have to be observed. And if you start in the upper right-hand corner, on the far left, there's a little tiny oval circle. Oval, that's the water fountain. The water fountain's fine, there just has to be a barrier there to protect it. A code. The larger oval up above it is in the ladies' restroom, and there's a counter on this wall here where the pictures are hanging that is opposite the stalls. That would have to slide down toward this end of that wall, away from those stalls, so there'd be enough clearance to get in there for ADA purposes. I'm not going to go through each one, other than just give you a flavor. The next oval to its right is right by the fireplace. That would have to be another door over on this side. I don't know if it'd have to be as large as this door, but it'd have to be on this side of the fireplace for code requirements. And then we get into some other things we can't read, but some circles around the stage. And the one on the front of the stage, if you can see it, it's got stairs in it, it's got an oval around it. Well, that's where a chairlift would have to be installed, right over here, and the stairs would remain on this side. Again, code. The other ovals are mostly fire-rated doors that would come into to play. Archeologic was very helpful in our effort to put 5 potential options into perspective. They led the committee using input we received from stakeholders and residents and assessing how well each of the possible options would address each of the design elements. Through this process, it quickly became apparent that only options 3 through 5 were truly viable. Options 1 and 2, one was the cosmetic design and the other option 2 was modernize existing configuration, simply did not meet enough of the community's needs. That input we received months ago from the users and from the general public. So at this point in time, the committee's focus, not the committee's recommendation, because there's a lot more data that has to be obtained and then evaluated. But the committee's focus at this time is option 4A. The committee actually created 4A. The architects came to us with option 4, and their option 4 was different from this one in that it didn't have a lobby. It had a separate pavilion, thank you. Pavilion outside the front of Burger, which was freestanding. And we quickly reminded the architects that we just paid a lot of money for a new plaza. And a pavilion would add an occupancy load further to this building, which would encroach upon parking also. So if you had a freestanding pavilion, that counts as an occupancy load, or people would be there, and therefore you'd have to provide parking for those. If you have a lobby, we don't think we're adding to the occupancy load. A small lobby on the front. That was the difference between 4 and 4A. The other difference was down the bottom left is meeting room G, which is this room here. We asked them to put in partitions along those 2 walls, the inside walls of room G, so that they could be thrown back and it could be opened up and provide more space for entertainment and get-togethers and dinners here in the Burger at some point in time. In the back, where you see all the red, the stage width in the back, not the opening, but in back, there are walls on either side. Each of those walls was brought in 1 foot. And in doing that, we were able to, the architects were able to, again conceptually, design wider hallways going back to the rear of the building. In fact, you can see at the rear of the building there are now 2 exit doors, which help with code greatly. And because they're there, those hallways have to be a certain width per code. And you'll also notice at the 2 corners in the back, if your eyes are good enough, one at the top says storage / Red Cross, the other says storage, large item, or large item storage. That is the expansion that 4A has to the square footage. It would be under the eaves in the back. It's now open to the air back there. It's outside. You can close those for storage for large items of our choosing, of maintenance's choosing too, and get rid of all the storage that's around in the kitchen, in room D, in room G, and centralize it back there, with easy access to the main auditorium. The next steps. The committee will develop more detailed information as may be required by the architects so that we may begin a cost budget analysis for the various elements of the burger update. And I want to stress there that the elements will be cost budgeted, those 19 rather than the options, because we're moving the elements and what we're going to do through those options. And it may be a board would decide, yeah, we like option 4A, but we don't want this and we want to add that, or we want to take out these two elements. That would be fine when we'd have an idea of what the budget for those two would be. So they might, at a future date, be creating a hybrid rather than just getting a budget for an option. We get budgets per the elements. After cost budgets are developed for option 4A in this case, Archeologic will provide a cost budget for option 5, a new burger auditorium based on cost per square foot estimates, including many of the design elements requested by the community. Final goal, to present to the OVA board the recommendations of the committee for the updating of the Burger Center with budget estimates per element. A little footnote, it was not in the committee's charter or purview, so we did not consider OVA space needs overall. Translated, that means should we move to a new office building, that office building has wonderful meeting spaces, maybe we don't need as many meeting spaces here, or maybe we need just as many. But that's a thing to look at in the future. At this stage, we're at the conceptual design arena, and like I said, the next steps will start the budgetary process, which is mainly in the hands of the architects and their consultants regarding HVAC, the floor, the windows, the doors, things like that. So, board, if you have any questions that I can't answer, Andy and Herm are here too.
I note that it's still a possibility of constructing a new auditorium. About how many square footage are you looking at on that?
Actually, there's been not even a conceptual design of that. This is almost 10,000 square feet, this auditorium. And so it would be like size, about 10,000 square feet. And there wouldn't be a conceptual plan there that just based it upon the design elements, what they know of now of our needs, and do a cost per square foot for comparison.
I have a question. This building on your 4A that you presented, does that not increase the square footage of this property?
Yes, it does. It's a reconfigure and expand, modernize and expand, and the expansion are the storage areas plus the lobby.
Plus the lobby, and how many square feet would you be adding?
That's a good question. These drawings are to scale, and the lobby is the most problematic because I think when we told them we didn't want to consider a pavilion at this time, we asked them to draw in a lobby, and I think they just drew in a section on the conceptual design to show a lobby, but not with any particular square footage involved at this time, although there are limits. You know, we have light poles and a few other things out
So
there.
I guess you would be saying if you build a new building that were the same square footage as this one, I guess you, in a newer property, you could design it more efficiently. You would be, 10,000 square feet would suffice at that point.
You might even make it two-story and have a smaller footprint and the same square footage overall. But we're not there, not even close. Yeah, good questions.
Bob, can your presentation be put on the OVA website, people to view?
If I get a fee, yeah. I was going to give a copy of this to the powers that be in the communications committee, who have been very good to us in updating what we've been doing. And they could choose what I think I put the whole thing on the website and maybe an article in the paper, I hope. Yeah.
I'm going to allow some general questions from the audience at this time. I think you had your hand raised first.
Microphone,
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. This works. Okay. I might have missed it because my mind has drifted a little bit during the presentation, but did you talk about the adjustment of the acoustics in this building and the rebuilding? And I missed it. Thank
You missed it. And you weren't paying rapt attention to what I was saying?
Most of it. I'm still coming back from San
Yeah, that was a big thing with, like we said, the amplified and the acoustic instruments too. It's just not carrying out, and there's not enough room sometimes for the power equipment that the performers bring with them.
Sorry.
So Bob, on that diagram, I think I see a passageway whereby musicians or actors who are in our green room will be able to access the bathroom on the other side here, and also if they wanted to enter the stage, stage right, I guess it would be, that they could go through the back now, where, I mean, right now it's full of stuff and you can't get through there.
Right. We had several fistfights when this came up,
Okay,
and there is not a, if storage wasn't in the way, in this particular
Yeah.
conceptual design,
yeah.
you could go outside, come around, and go back in. We think musicians, besides being talented, are innately smart. And if there were males and females in a group, that one would use the restroom closest to them and close the door, and the other one would use it afterwards, and regardless of sex.
Yeah, well, that could work out.
Yeah, I think so.
But still in all, I think it's possible
But
that
we-
when we have presentations that people might want to enter from both sides of the stage or somehow get around to the other side without coming out to the audience. Right now, the way it is, they can't do it unless they come out to this main room.
Yeah, we
At all.
talked about that, and maybe others have something to say, but making a corridor specifically for that would eat up a lot of space.
No, but what I'm seeing is two doors now going through the back storage, and if there were
Right.
at least a path going through there, it would be possible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's for storage, yeah.
Okay.
And
Well,
there may be a path.
It is now, you know, it wasn't before.
Let's just get it through city first.
Okay, okay, and the other thing about your acoustics and so forth, you know, important to have it a way for musicians to use our loudspeakers and so forth to integrate and sync. Okay, thank you.
You know, this would be a very good thing, these particular suggestions that, you email in these suggestions to the website for the committee so that they can accumulate these suggestions. I assume that's what they've been doing up to this point anyhow, but certainly the public's welcome to make any suggestions, and nothing's going to be built until the whole community is involved in some way on this. Yes, George?
Bob, do you have any rough estimate, and I know it would be very rough, as to how long Berger would be out of commission for 4A?
Well, since the pickleball courts are nearly finished, using them as an example, George, it's a great question, but you know, there's us and there are contractors, and then there's the city. And my experience so far, it's a labyrinth, and God knows how long that would be. And I know what you're saying about being shut down, but I couldn't hazard a guess at that too. And you know, it's not a pro or a con. It's just kind of there. And this will be controversial, but if we found out it cost $3 million to do everything that the community wanted this place to be for the next 40 to 50 years, and we found out it cost $3.7 million to build an entirely new one, brand spanking new, that's the board and the community's decision. But we want to put those things there. And the reason I mentioned it is shutting down Berger for 6 to 8 months is going to hurt the community. It's going to hurt the concert series. It's going to hurt Kiwanis. It's going to hurt Shaboom. It's going to hurt the Boomers. It's going to hurt, you know, all the things that we're used to doing in this edifice that we've got. So that has to be in the mix too, and when we talk about this at a future date, and it's a much future date. So, George, I wish I had a guess, but I don't even think I could ask that of the architects at this point in time.
Bob, one of the things that we were looking at early on in the project was we're remodeling a burger, was to provide some type of a temporary tent out here in the greensward that would handle some of the functions anyway. So that's still always a possibility. Of course, that adds to the cost because that would not be. And I think, Bob, you mentioned 6 to 8 months. I can't imagine it happening in less than a year.
John?
You know, one of the things I've been thinking about from the very beginning, and I have not even attended one of their meetings, I've deliberately stayed away. They're very capable of handling things, and they've done an excellent job to date. I think they all deserve applause for what's happened so far. By the same token, one of the things that Bob mentioned was they did not consider what kinds of impacts the different choices might have on other needs within the area here with our central complex. We're talking about expanding the library. They wanted more room for cards and more, no, I got that one wrong. I'm getting a no over here. Certainly the fitness center would like to expand. And I personally, this is way premature, but I'm kind of in favor of, if it weighs out that way, is to design a second building, 2 stories likely, that would take the overload from the other sections that we still have to address. We'd be able to use this building until the other one's finished, so this wouldn't be closed at all, and there are expenses involved with trying to figure out how to relocate things here. And the other issue is if we did build a new building and this came down eventually, I don't know what it would be replaced with, but definitely part of it would be parking. And that's the big thing that always lurks in the background that we don't talk about too much, but it's a real factor. So I'm not sure that at this point, there's no decision to be made, but I think there are a lot of pluses to what I might add before the decision's made as far as the board's concerned about overall benefit to OVA.
George, one last tangent to your point. Lynn Kramer, who I doubt is here, but he's on our committee. He did several months ago a really well researched and plotted through graphs the schedule of activities and group use of Burger by size and by month. So we got a good idea of if the board was going to say, when do we redo it, we'd have some months that would be better than other months. And it's no surprise those come out to be the summer months, by and large. But it's not going to be enough time to redo it if we do a major redo of this.
Now, in order to get to the rest of the business meeting, I'm going to stop the discussion at this time. There will be many opportunities for the public to participate in making suggestions and discussing the various options. This is just a preliminary report at this time to the board to give an indication of the directions they're thinking and what the possibilities are. So, Bob, I also want to thank you on behalf of the board, both you and your committee, for the excellent work you've done and the time you've put in. Thank you. Before getting to the members' open forum, Eleanor Rodnansky, are you here now? Eleanor? There she is. Could you step forward to the microphone, please? Oh, you're not in trouble. Yeah. We have many excellent volunteers here at Oakmont. I think we have over 600 volunteers. And one of the super volunteers has been Eleanor Brodnansky. And we on the board wanted to recognize her for the many, many years that she has put in on the landscaping committee and other various projects. The service you have performed for Oakmont has just been superb. Eleanor will be moving out of Oakmont. She sold her home, or selling her home, and she'll be moving out, so she will not be able to continue on. But in recognition of all of the work you put in, we had a little token gift we'd like to give you. Hope I don't drop it here. It says, Oakmont Village Association Board of Directors is pleased to present its Community Service Award to Eleanor Brodnansky in recognition of Eleanor's generous volunteer commitment to being our community, to our community since August of 2004. So we want to thank you very much.
I've had so much fun doing the things that I do, so it wasn't a problem at all for me. I really enjoyed working with everyone. And as I said, it was just fun. Thank you so much.
At this time, we'd like to open it up to the members' open forum. This is the opportunity for anybody in the audience who would like to step forward to the microphone and make any comments they want to make. I would ask that your comments be limited to 3 minutes. We will have a timekeeper, which would be John. Could you act as timekeeper? Please state your name before you start speaking, and then go ahead with your presentation. John Felton will be the...
Give me like 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. That would help. Is that how that works?
Yeah.
This is the last minute?
John, tell him how it works.
Okay, for you and anyone else who's going to speak, when you start, we start the timer, and you have a green light. When you have 30 seconds remaining, the yellow light comes on, and when the red light starts blinking, the hoop comes out.
Hey, hi, my name is Kerry Oswald. I'm a member of the community here. I was pleased to have the presentation today because it's getting the whole community involved is very important. What I've done during the last week and a half here is gone around with a petition against the pickleball courts being built here at the central area here. What I had decided to do was canvass my neighborhood, so I went around 4 blocks, 124 houses, and gathered signatures and had conversation with all different kinds of people. This is what I learned. One, there's a lot of animosity going on in the community about this simple sport thing that we're trying to solve here in our community. The first thing I hear is, are you for or are you against? I'm not against pickleball. I'm just against the project. So this is what I found out. Out of the 95 households that were home, 7 people said that they wanted to stay neutral, they wanted not to get involved. I got 87 signatures out of 99 households. Generally, the trend in the community here is we don't want it, we don't want it by the swimming pool, we don't want the sound, and we don't want the expense. Now, the expense as it's standing right now is we've already used over $50,000 in research on this, and the whole community is not involved. We sort of burned ourselves by already investing the money without getting the bids on what it would cost to make the courts. What I do know from my research of going around the community and doing a lot of measurement, what we could solve this problem with is with a good conversation within the community here, and would cost us about $10,000 instead of up in the hundreds and thousands of dollars. We just need to have the time to do that. Why I'm standing in front of you today is because it's going to go before the city council in October or November. And it's got to be stopped here before it gets that far, and we need to have that conversation, and we have to have our alternative solutions. Because as I'm understanding right now, already sort of the first bid we're going towards is above what we thought it was going to cost, and that's not even building the court. So where I'm concerned is, people are saying as I go around the community, I'm concerned because I'm on a fixed budget. I'm concerned about the rate of membership here in the community. I'm concerned about how our money is being used. So what I'm doing is trying to get this on record as just part of the group of people who are getting signatures here and say, with these statistics, it's saying a lot. It's saying 80% of the community, if this was true of all the neighborhoods around, don't want it, and they don't want it here. They're not against the sport, they just don't like the design and they don't like the placement, and I think it's very good reasons. This is one of the most peaceful places in the community. I love sitting in the swimming pool and looking at the mountains. I don't want to see an 8-foot-high fence, and I don't want all the racket from the racquetball. It's a wooden paddle with a plastic ball. It makes a lot of noise. You played ping pong, you probably know what that noise sounds like. So what we need to do is come up with a better solution because of the cost, because of the noise, and because of the placement. And this needs to happen before it goes before the city council.
Thank you. Next.
Michael Goff, 7568 Oak Leaf Drive. Two things. One is about kind of a life and death situation. At the west, there are currently 3 redwood trees that either appear to be dying or are soon to be diseased and dying. And I'd like to have the board investigate with an arborist how to rectify that situation. Second is, and I wasn't going to speak on this, but the reason the cost of the pickleball investigation is so high is because the city has gotten its big foot in the way. They are the ones who are requiring the studies be done. That money is from us, but they have to find out every little nitpicky thing, and the next thing they'll do is ask people to wear uniforms for anything that we do on campus. But my most important thing is the trees. The trees look terrible. They look like they're around 100 years old and are about to fall on something and just die. Thank you.
Before you leave, on reference to the trees, I'm not exactly sure which trees you refer to, but could you in some way
Sure.
get an email to Cassie?
We know about
Oh, we do? Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Hi, Ray Haverson, 7111 Oak Leaf Drive. I'd like to address the board on an issue that happened July 21st. I think the air needs to be clear. It's been going on way too long. I came in like a gentleman and asked for a very simple request. And unfortunately, a few of the board members got out of hand and decided to call me names, decided to call me fraud, decided to say that I was disingenuous, which is the same thing as calling me a liar, and then threatened if I went down to the city meeting and got up to talk, he was going to get behind me, and that was Mr. Scott after Alan Scott. He was going to stand behind me, tell him just how disingenuous and what a fraud I am. That was uncalled for. That's not the way you talk to residents. That's not the way you treat people. You treat them with dignity. I treated the people here with dignity. And one other thing, John Phillips. Phil, I want to thank you very much. He was the only gentleman on the board that came up to me and apologized for the actions of the board. The only person. And I applaud you. Frank, you're in charge. You should have put an end to that right when it started and not let it get as far. You don't have any problems stopping other people if they get out of hand, but you never said a word to them, and you should have. That's your job. And as far as Alan Scott goes, I think he needs to recluse himself from any votes on pickleball, since how he made the statement that he would spend not $200,000, $300,000 and vote for it. That's a violation of his fiduciary rights. That's what he's supposed to do, is look out for us, not threaten us, and say that he'll vote $300,000. It's ridiculous. And there should have been some action taken. I asked for an apology. He says, oh, you probably got one coming, but I'm not giving it to you. That's the least he could have done. That's all I have to say on the matter.
I'd like to respond. Speaking for myself, this will be the 4th time I apologize. I've apologized at, I think, the last board meeting, and I have apologized at 2 fireside chats. for not taking action when I probably should have taken action to stop the heated discussion as the way it got out of hand. So again, I will apologize, and I'm going to try to exercise my discretion much better in terms of keeping order while still allowing, free speech. I don't want to interfere with people's ability to express themselves and that sort of thing. So this will be my fourth apology.
I appreciate that. I didn't hear the other three. Unfortunately, I was on vacation, but I thank you very much for that. But that's the gentleman over there.
Okay. John, did you want to?
I just wanted to clarify.
Excuse me.
I have the floor.
I think John
Oh, you-
had his hand raised.
I just want to clarify, with what Ray said, was 90% accurate, but not exactly, and it's important to me. I was at the Quail Inn a couple days later having dinner, and he was sitting outside. I went back and said, Ray, I'm sorry this happened. And I only speak for myself, but at that point, I had said nothing at the meeting to disparage him in any way, and I apologize for what happened, but I didn't apologize for the board. I can't apologize for the actions of somebody else. I can only be responsible for my own. Now, maybe that sounds like a fine point, but that's where I was coming from. And I sincerely meant what I said when I said it. Thank you.
Thank you, John, and I thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Ma'am, would you like to speak? Yes, go
Are you
ahead.
sure?
Yes, you have the floor.
Okay, Murray Webb, Stonebridge Road. I would like the board to sponsor a seminar, an educational kind of seminar addressing the legal and the ethical considerations of the donor's intent. People give a lot of money here in Oakmont, and some donors, they do what you want, other donors specify, but I think I think it would be helpful for the community to have an educational seminar on this topic. Thank you.
Ma'am,
Don't
I'm sorry, I didn't understand, and John Felton didn't understand. Would you
Maybe.
explain a little more what you're
Well, the donor intent, when you give money to an organization, you might say, I want this for a field trip to the opera. And the people with the money say, well, no, we're going to go to a theater event instead. That's denying donor intent. Getting money in an organization and taking off to Europe with the money instead of building a library, that's denying donor intent. It comes in all sorts of forms. But I think when a donor gives a donation and they have an intent to it, that intent should be honored. But I think there are some ethical considerations and some legal considerations, and I think it would be helpful if the community knew these things.
Okay, I'd like to have a personal conversation with you at some future date to explore this a little more fully.
We don't have to get very specific about it. I just think that we give, a whole lot of money for things. I mean, there's this wonderful group now, a new group that gives exercise classes, and they have these fundraisers. I don't participate in this at all. I'd like to sit. And they provide instructors and whatever. Now, when people go to these events, they assume, the money's going to go for instructors, and it does. But that's donor intent again. So, and I did take this to the Oakmont Community Foundation because I thought it was community and I thought it was educational, but it does not fall within their purview.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Okay, if not, we will go ahead with the regular board meeting. First, I have some announcements to make. On the West Park Course tree maintenance proposal, we got a couple of emails from residents above the park course, where the open space is over there, and where there's a trail with the park course on it, and they were concerned about fire danger still, even though the weeds were cut down, and the fire danger being the oak trees and other trees in that location, which generally come very close to the ground. And then there's some other cut up logs and things that are under the trees and that sort of thing. And they were, because of the fire season and because of what's going on with the drought and all, they were very concerned that a fire might start and go up the hill and destroy their homes. So we had 2 arborists go out there to give us bids. One was too high, and so we got a second bid, which was half the cost, which was approximately $7,500. So we are proceeding with having those trees trimmed, I think as of today, right? Yeah, yeah, it's today. So I'm just announcing that's been done. The code of conduct, at the last board meeting, I announced that I was very interested in preparing a code of conduct because of the incident that had occurred at the Central Activities Center the previous week. That code of conduct is in a draft form. 3 of us on the board here have been working on it, but it has not been presented to the board yet. One reason is because I found out that there also had been a code of conduct, or actually it's a employee abuse committee that had been working on a code for members in terms of how they deal with employees of Oakmont. And they put a lot of time and effort into that, and it came to kind of it petered out in I think February of 2014. The committee chairman, I think, became ill and had some personal problems, and it just kind of didn't get to the board and get finished. The other members are still present. I'm going to be meeting with them Friday on that particular policy that they put a lot of time into, and we'll either present both the code of conduct for members as well as the employee abuse policies, probably at the next workshop, and determine whether we want to proceed with something of that nature, and we might even combine the 2 into one document. So it's not a dead issue, it's just it hasn't gotten very far at this point, but it should be up on the next board workshop. Mesa Oaks OVA landscape agreement. I won't go into the details of this, but Andy Altman has been kindly negotiating or working with the representatives of the Mesa Oaks Homeowners Association. What occurred is that many years ago, I think it was 1985, 84, there was a piece of land that was kind of shared in common between the Homeowners Association of Meadow Oaks and OVA, a very small piece of land. But back then, they made an agreement that OVA would maintain the property and cut the lawn and things of that nature, and the Homeowners Association would provide water because there's no water source from Oakmont Village Association. Anyhow, that apparently went on for many, many years, and then you might say it just kind of became inactive or fell apart in the last year, 2 years. And so a meeting was wanted between the Homeowners Association and Oakmont as to what we should do about this piece of land. I won't bore you with the details. Andy spent a lot of time and effort on this, and she gave us like a 3 or 4 page summary of what negotiations went on. But what it boils down to, we found it to the benefit, at least of OVA, just to terminate the agreement. We will go ahead and take care of our portion of the land. They will take care of their portion of the land. However, I would say that there is a gentleman's agreement, or in this case, it's a ladies' agreement, that with the OVA and the Homeowners Association will attempt to make their landscaping of this small portion of land compatible with each other. So I'm just letting you know that that's what we did. Okay. Fireside chat. I really enjoyed the fireside chats. I was on the last 2 that we had, and it was a pleasurable experience. And I think it's quite worthwhile. We're not having great attendance, but we do have very friendly and open discussions during those chats. I would like to announce that this coming Friday, and this will be on the Cassie's OVA blast, the 2 participants will be Herm Herman and John Felton, if anyone would like to come and ask questions. Pardon? Oh, the time is Friday at 3 o'clock, and it's right here in front of the fireplace. case you want to come. Um, Then I have some information I wanted to report to the community. The information came in too late to put it on the agenda, so we can't discuss it today. But I thought it was important to get the information out as soon as possible. I think many of the other board members here have obviously been concerned with the continuing costs associated with the building of the pickleball courts. Over a period of 2 years since October of 2013, my estimate is approximately $45,000. I could be off. It could be $50,000. I think it's $45,000. Okay, so she says 60. Okay, in that neighborhood, okay, has been incurred by 3 separate boards in trying to get the matter to the city such that a permit can be pulled in order to allow the board to get a concrete figure on what the pickleball courts might cost, okay? I think there's been basically two reasons that these costs have been incurred up to this point. One is let's see, maybe I should just read this because I had it all written out. In my opinion, the delay in getting the permit, which would then allow us to get an accurate cost figure, has been occasioned by primarily 2 factors. The redrawing of the plans as the court complex was thought through and modified. I think that added some cost. And then the demands for a public hearing by individuals having opposition to the concept of building pickleball for reasons dealing with outright cost, potential noise and obstruction of views, and other reasons or perceptions. Because of that, I asked Cassie and the pickleball committee to try to get an estimate from a contractor who has experience with building projects such as this on what the costs might be based on the most recent plans that we have and that are before the city. And an estimate was obtained, okay? It's a verbal estimate, it's not in writing, but we had Siri Construction go out to the site, look at the plans. The 2 members of the pickleball committee were there to show them where the layout would be and all that. And I think Cassie was there too. And we got a report back from Siri. Now, Siri had done an estimate, I think, gosh, maybe 1.5 years ago for the pickleball people, but it was a very rough estimate at that time. There was no drawings per se. They were thinking about putting 2 courts, I think, or no more than 2 courts, but they were thinking about converting the shuffleboards, that area, and it would be a flat surface. And at that time they came in with a much lower figure. Okay. This time around, Siri Grading and Pavement Company has given the following verbal estimate. For the grading and preparation of the site, it would now cost approximately $90,000. Okay. Building the actual courts with appropriate fencing, landscaping, lighting, etc., would cost another approximate $160,000. So the construction cost would be about, based on this particular bid, $250,000. Okay. Now, while I was waiting to get this particular bid or estimate on the construction cost, the city of Santa Rosa again changed the rules of the game for the public hearing. They just keep changing the rules on us. And they notified us that with the following new requirements which had to be met before such a public hearing can occur. A few of those additional requirements are federal AD accessibility requirements must be met in the plans. For instance, they would have to cut a concrete curb out on White Oak and Oakmont for ADA purposes to allow access from that area over to this area. A storm water management plan must be submitted. since the new impervious service, they're talking about the courts, area exceeds 10,000 square feet. The gradings and design must be in accordance with geotechnical investigation and soil reports. And a site plan is required that accurately depicts the entire site, not just the area of work. So we have new information on what it might actually cost, although we don't have the final plan. Okay? And we also have new requirements by the city, and we don't know what those are going to cost. Again, we can't discuss that today because it's not on the agenda and all this information came in Friday. Also, the key players on the pickleball committee, I think, are on vacation right now and would not be able to respond and all that. But here's what I anticipate. If the city's requirements have to be met, then if the pickleball committee decides that they want to request additional monies, they're going to have to come before the board. And there will be an open meeting and discussion at that time. But I just wanted to bring this information to the public's attention at this time, rather than having it leak out and think that we're perhaps hiding something or something like that. So, yeah, that's new information. That's the announcement that I have. The executive meeting minutes summaries. John, do you want to summarize the executive minutes?
Thank you, Frank. The agenda was for the meeting held on Tuesday, August 18th at 11 o'clock in room G. Generally, the discussion is we don't bring up the specific details for closed sessions for obvious reasons. We had a couple of hearings, discussed some legal issues, contracts, some actions on how to handle some problems with the architectural committee, personnel issues, and then we adjourned. That's pretty much a quick summary. Thank you.
Thank you, John. The consent calendar. Could I have a motion on the consent calendar? John?
I have a question on the consent calendar.
Yes.
It hasn't been seconded yet.
Hasn't been seconded yet, so we hold your motion. Andy, you seconded? Okay. Discussion.
Item 6C, approval recognition request, the Single Malt Scotch Club and the Valley of the Moon Wine Club. Do these have any bearing whatsoever on OVA's liquor law liability exposure?
I had that checked out this morning. First of all, well, actually, I asked Cassie to check it out, so she would be the one to appropriately address this.
No and no. In other words, the Single Malt Scotch Club, there's no additional liability on behalf of OVA. And Valley of the Moon Wine Club, that's a class, and he's going to be charging for it, so he's treated just like any other vendor and contractor, and he has his own liability.
Yeah, and he has a certificate on file. So the wine class has a certificate of insurance. The other one is not required to have it because they do not charge for the liquor. So our insurance agent says we're okay. Any other discussion on the consent calendar? Okay, then all those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Elka, could you give us the treasurer's report, please?
My report covers the 8-month period ending August 31st, 2015, and I have to apologize. I had written down 8/30, but it's actually through the 31st of August. And so we had income, operating revenue of $1,477,975, and miscellaneous revenue of $69,720. which makes total income of $1,547,695, as opposed to budgeted revenue of $1,521,786, and so we have a positive variance of $25,909. And by the way, I'm sorry, every time I do the revenue accounting here, I test for our 501c7 compliance to make sure that we have more than 65% of revenue from owner's dues. That's just a side. Our expenses were administrative, $322,393. Committee expenses, $16,704. Payroll, $700,912. Custodial and maintenance, $78,344. Grounds at common areas, $81,039. Recreation common areas, $46,331. The community bus, $40,150. Patrol and fire systems, $15,721, and utilities, $173,195. So the total expenses were $1,474,789 versus budgeted of $1,521,788. So we have a positive variance there too of $46,999. And our net income to date is $70,906. And we have a variance, obviously, of $72,908 there. We have contributions to our reserves to date. The Asset Replacement Fund received $349,867. The Capital Improvement Fund, the normal contribution, $72,857. The Capital Improvement Fund for the loan, $384,708. And the amounts received from the developer to date were $251,000. And we have sold 16 units at the Meadows so far through August 31st. And we received $6,667 for the catastrophe fund. So the total contributions to the fund were $1,065,099. And we had budgeted $809,839, but we do not budget the amounts received from the developer. And so therefore we have a large variance of $255,260. The expenditures from the reserves, we spent from the Asset Replacement Fund $561,235. Capital Improvement Fund, $725,957. So that the total fund expenditures were $1,087,192. And then we have cash and investments. Our ending balances as of 8/31 are the operating fund, $558,445. The asset replacement fund, $757,828. Capital improvement fund, $578,748. And the catastrophe fund, $117,806. So we have a total cash and investments of $2,012,827. Are there any questions about the report?
It's been moved that we approve. Seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you, Elka. That was very good. I might mention that next meeting, the board will be considering the budget for the entire year next year. So it's a very important meeting. We'll be discussing the reserves.
That's a special meeting.
Oh, it's a special meeting?
Yeah, that's on the 13th of October. That's a special budget meeting.
Okay. And that's open to the public, right?
Yes.
Right, okay. So you might want to put that on your calendar. While we're in between items here on the thing, I think I just wanted to mention to you, certain things you do in life are quite stressful. Like I was going through school and law school, I've had dreams ever since then. They continue on that I didn't finish the exams or didn't prepare or what have you. I think it's quite common for people who have gone through that. And then when I was an attorney, I had these dreams of going into court and arguing my case and not having pants on. So, I have all these stressful. Well, anyhow, I just had my first board meeting dream. And it was quite good. I mean, first of all, the meeting opened and I was in the back of the room behind everybody, calling the meeting to order. And I said, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be up here. And then I got up here and I couldn't find the agenda. And when I did find the agenda, I couldn't find anything that I knew about the agenda. And unfortunately, the dream ended before we got to pickleball. That's all I can say. That would be the nightmare.
Frank?
Yes.
We're not finished. We have a reserve study report as well.
Oh, okay. Let's get serious now.
Go back to the dry stuff. Okay, the reserve study, of course, is completed now, and it was performed, as always, by Tom O'Neill, who's our reserve study analyst. And he did that in June and July. And of course, the methodology was that he went around and performed physical inspections of all of the facilities. And then he revised our 2015 existing schedules to reflect the deletions and the additions that took place. And then, of course, the most important thing, the life expectancy of additions as well as projected replacement cost at the time of obsolescence. And so this is then where we came in, and so we have conducted an internal review, and this was done by Andy Altman, who's also spent considerable time in the prior year already on this on the study. And then Cassie Turner, Rick Orbit, and myself. And so we went through...
And Rick Aubert.
Huh?
Rick Aubert.
Rick Aubert. Oh, sorry, okay. We went through numerous iterations to arrive at our final destination here. And we basically concentrated on the projected replacement cost and also the projected life expectancy on the components. And what happened was when we reviewed it, basically with Rick's expertise, we mostly increased the replacement cost from what they were listed, and we shortened the life expectancy of the components. And we did that fairly substantially in some of the cases. And then also we reviewed the worksheets for small items. And I think, again, Andy had started that process last year where she tried to remove very small items that really don't have any place in an asset replacement reserve to a separate spreadsheet so we could use it for budgeting our operating budget, basically. And I just would like to mention just a couple of items, for instance, that we removed. There are many of these. Some of them were like hardware for doors, which had a replacement value of maybe $600 or something like that. Then also, for instance, dog bag dispensers were on there, which had replacement values of $90 or something similar. Digital thermometers and other such items that probably don't make up any, have no place in an asset reserve, but should just be expensed as necessary through the operating budget thing. So we had, I think the total cost of those, or projected replacement cost, ended up to be around $130,000 out of the total ideal replacement. I think that turned out to be like $3.4 million. But, that is the ideal amount we would have in the reserve if we replaced all of those items within the next 30 years, and if all of the costs come true and so forth, we would have now $3.4 million in that reserve. That's the ideal amount as determined, by the study. So anyway, after we had done all of that, we basically now want to follow our capitalization policy that we've had in place, which says that we will be capitalizing only $2,000 if the expenditure is $2,000 or less any individual expenditure, then we capitalize, which means we will also put it into the reserve. Otherwise, it will run through the operating budget as an operating expense, which should clean up the schedules and make everything a lot easier. And also, when we have this policy, we would, and we enforce it and then follow it on a consistent basis so everybody knows, it's on the same page, basically. So that was our approach. And then reviewing the numbers, if you look, I think we have this is in our packet, the board packet. And it would be on page 6.1 is where we have the total year, or rather the 2016 projected expenditures as discovered by the study. We had the total estimated outlay for 2016 would be $510,430. And then Tom O'Neill suggests the additions to the reserve, which is in the front page for 2016, of $540,540, which turns out to be, if we convert that to a monthly dues, and we had 4,667 members at the end of August, basically. And so that would turn out to be, I had $9.64 here per month, but it's actually $9.65 per month, which would be up by 18 cents. It would be an 18 cents increase from the year 2015 when we were adding $9.47 per month to the reserve. So that's where we are. And I would say, of course, we'll be discussing that again at the budget meeting because this is going to be part of our annual budget. And then my question would be, however, and something just to consider maybe for the board, when I'm looking at the schedules, of our next 3 years projected expenditures, and you look at all of these line items, my question is, how do we determine that we're really going to be doing that? Should we should we sit down and look through these schedules and set some priorities, and who would be doing that? Basically it would be the board's responsibility. And I don't think, as far as I'm concerned, or I couldn't see that in 2015, we actually did anything about the reserve schedule. The projected expenditures were there, but I don't think anybody really, I didn't pay any attention to it. I think it just was there possibly as a guideline, and there were a lot of repairs and so forth were done. But not necessarily based on what the schedule said, but for other reasons, And so the question is, should we have some sort of a plan in place or a projection as to what we would be doing? And perhaps we would have a small committee help in determining what those items might be and what are the priorities. Where do we really want to be with this in the future? Do we just need to keep it swinging in the wind and just forget about it and go the reactive way that we've done before, where we just do the repairs as they come along, basically? That's fine.
Bob?
I don't know the answer to that right now, but I missed something when you were talking. You said it, but I didn't get it down. What is the number of residents we're assuming in the budget?
We had, as of August 31st, we had 4,667 paying members.
And that's the number we're going to base reserving and funding and,
Yeah, I think
and budgets for?
Yeah, right.
Okay, thank you.
I can get another fix on the numbers. It changes,
Sure.
They change, but we have to, I think we'll stick with this one,
Yes.
Frank, if I may, I noticed that we were sort of written out of the agenda this time. If that's on purpose, then fine. If not,
no,
this might
I'm
be a
sorry,
good time for me to put in 2 cents for the OCDC.
Yes, just give me a moment. Okay, anything else? Okay.
Any questions or any comments or?
Well, I presume we are going to go over this in some detail at the budget session. I have a number of questions. This is certainly not the time to do it.
Well, I think we're going to have a budget meeting.
The budget meeting on the 13th. I presume
Right.
that we'll have time at that meeting to go over this in some detail.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we will.
It's probably going to be a couple hours or more.
Yeah, yeah, we'll go through basically all of the, I mean, the operating budget and everything, and then, of course, we'll have to spend time on this as to how much money do we want to
That's
collect
right,
from the
okay.
reserves. okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
Just one-
I want to address this last comment. You were not purposely written out of any agenda or anything like that. I apologize if you feel that way. Did you have something to report as far as the,
Well, actually, yes.
okay, go ahead.
And I'm not going to report on everything we talked about, but there are two main things that the OCDC is considering now and we're concerned with. One of them, some of you may have read in the paper that I had kind of a reaction to the winery going in across the street. We were not at all surprised about the permit because it had been already, the event permit had already been given in 1999. So we did know that that was coming, 20 events. What did surprise me about that, and which brings this whole question to the fore, is that the person who bought the property, 15 acres, which has 20 events already permitted, is also given permission to produce 126,000 cases of wine. Now you can guess that that is not going to be grown on that property. He's only planting 6 acres of grapes and has 550 acres up in the Alexander Valley. That is what kind of got me going on this. So one thing that the OCDC is going to do is to construct a letter that we will do the best we can, and then we'll submit it to you and hope that the board will go along with asking the PRMD, the Permit Resource Management Department, to review their methods, because there are a lot of silent permits. I didn't even mention there's another one across the street that is just winery, just grapes now, but they also have an event permit that's already been granted. So I call them, dormant permits. And we just feel there might be some other ways that the PRMD might consider the way they give the permits out and how they manage the resources. The other letter that will be coming to you has to do with community separators. Community separators are areas of property privately owned, not purchased by the county, but designated as a way to separate the communities to keep their separateness. In other words, Oakmont not running right into Kenwood and Kenwood running into Glen Ellen, etc. This was voted on by the voters 20 years ago, but it sunsets in 2016. So we do want to make some comment and have some input on that issue. And so when we get around to preparing these letters, there will be 2 of them submitted to the board.
Could you explain how the separators are implemented? I mean, you don't put up walls, I assume.
No, they don't put up walls. And as a matter of fact, there already has been use being made of some of these areas that are actual, plotted out on a map. In fact, Ledson's property down there is partially on a community separator. But I guess the assumption is if it's in grapes, then that's okay. But it's just to keep houses and building and cities to running into each other. Wally is going to get us a little bit more information because this was written about by Jay Gamble in the Kenwood Press, and Jay is pretty knowledgeable about community separators. And I will be more knowledgeable when you get your letter.
Thank you. And my
Okay.
apologies for not having you on the agenda.
Oh, good. Kathleen, you're the one I want.
Hi, Kathleen Conley. I'm on the County-wide Stakeholders Committee that is reviewing the permitting process for new applicants for vineyards and wineries, and they're addressing the items that you talked about, so I'm not so sure that a letter could... Okay. As far as those wineries that have already been permitted, there is nothing we can do to go back and change it. But there is going to be better enforcement of violations, and they're working a lot on that. So the Stakeholders Committee has been meeting for about 4 months and will be going on into the first of the year. And then the permitting department will submit a new proposal to the Board of Supervisors for all these revisions and changes.
Thank you. Okay, Cassie.
I just wanted to comment on the reserve funding information that Elke presented. You weren't necessarily in on the explanation last year, so I wanted to kind of flesh it out because I got some questions out after last year's information. And one of the reasons you don't have it is because it hasn't been officially approved yet. So that's going to be part of the budget explanation. And the reserve study also goes on the website, so you'll be able to access that as soon as it's approved. But when Elka and Andy and I and Rick pulled out all of the components that were $2,000 and less, one of the reasons we did that is we felt comfortable enough that there was adequate funding in the maintenance anyway to fix these, so it's not like we now have to increase the assessments to such a degree since we pulled all of those out. The other thing is the annual reserve contribution from 2015 to 2016, with all of that being pulled out, with reevaluation of when our components are going to be needing replacement, didn't increase it much. It went from an annual reserve contribution from $524,796 in 2015 to $540,540 in 2016. Or the monthly reserve contribution went from $43,733 to a suggested increase of $45,045. So the percent funded at the end of the day when you do all of this is it went from 26.46% funded in 2015. It's going to increase to 27.34% in 2016. So it's not that big of an increase. And the other thing that I think is important is the board did discuss the expenditures last year, but they felt that the expenditures were really going to be happening mostly in the West Rec area. And for the 2016 year, when they're highlighted, and you'll get a kind of a Reader's Digest version of what's being pulled out to be spent for next year, there are things like the Hobart dishwasher, okay? So you have a question in your mind. Are we going to replace the Hobart dishwasher that's listed at $4,239, or are we going to wait until we decide what to do with the burger? You know, I would think logic would dictate that you would hold off on that. But that's a kind of thing. There's a washer and dryer replacement in the pool cabana. We could decide on replastering both the central pool and the east pool because they're both in need of it. But those are the kinds of things that the board, yes, can sit down and decide, and Rick Gobert would be very helpful in evaluating which are the things that are going to need replacement, or can they hold off for a year? But those are the kinds of things that are going to be decided within, well, probably before 2016.
I just want to point out that actually the summary of the study that we have now in our Dropbox will be submitted with the budget packet to each of the owners when it goes out mid-November, I guess, is our deadline. So.
Okay, thank you. Cassie, the manager's report, do you have anything to add or
No, I don't
comment on in that? Okay, we'll move to the next item then. Under new business, item number 9A, West Rec Center landscape rock. What's the purpose of that? Why is that on the calendar?
That is, the reason that's on the calendar is it's an $8,040 number. And it's landscape rock that we want to do more for irrigation around the West Rec pool because it's more for water drainage. There was originally landscaping in all of these areas, but there's no reason to put landscaping back into sections around the pool all the way around it that are that wide. Or it's to dig out the area behind the cabana where they redid the gutters, dig that area out and put in rock. And we did submit it to the Finance Committee, but unfortunately the Finance Committee didn't have a quorum. So that's why it's coming to you, because we really need to get this done before the rains start coming.
So you
Hopefully the rains.
So you're asking for board approval of this because you did not have an opportunity to run it by the Finance Committee, is that
Yes.
correct? Well, we have one member of the Finance Committee here. Do you see any objections, Elka? Okay, she sees no objections.
I think something needs to be done there. You know, we saw the pictures of the area and everything, and something needs to be done, so.
Okay.
I have just a quick question.
Sure.
Do we, is it in here, I didn't, how many square feet were, he's talking about 22 tons of cobble. That's a lot of rock. Is that?
You're right, it's a lot of rock, but it's a lot of area. I don't know how to, I mean, it's all around the pool, it's all behind the cabana, it's in a section between the fenced-off pool area and the tennis court shed. So, yeah, it's, yes, and then we want to make for drainage purposes inside the huge planter area above the pool, we want to put in 2 feet of that rock, so when the water comes down, it goes into that rock. So it's a lot.
Okay, Alan,
It's that normal cobble, big cobble.
you want to use your microphone?
Or
I move that the board authorize this expenditure.
Okay, Andy seconded. Sorry, Aaron. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. The OVA hiring part-time fitness instructor. We had a fairly extensive discussion of this at the board workshop among the board, and participation in the audience by the fitness club. Teresa and Tom Woodrum were there making an argument for perhaps some funds for their health initiative. So we spent over an hour or more. For those who weren't there, generally I can summarize it this way. The fitness center, since it's a new inception back in 6 years ago, wanted to have a fitness instructor, and the way they have funded the fitness instructor, John Phillips, who's present here, very nice gentleman, the way they funded it is they formed a club, and then they asked for volunteer donations to pay for his expense, and he was hired as an independent contractor, and he would get paid a certain amount for the year, and they were able to meet that budget for all of these years up to the present time. They gave him a modest increase this year, and as a result, they've basically run out of money. They just aren't able to. There aren't enough people volunteering to contribute their $20 per person to fund the fitness instructor. So the fitness club came to us and say, would you help us in some way? We want to keep the fitness instructor. Be done in a number of different ways. The ideas floated are generally the following. One, we could do nothing, and the fitness club will have to punt and try to figure out what they can do if they want to do anything, or John just might be released. That's one option. Another option was to require that everyone who uses the fitness center would would have to, contribute, not voluntarily, but now you'd have to pay $20 a year, and that would give them adequate funds. That option is still possible, but I'm not sure it's legal. I mean, after all, we pay dues here to use facilities, and to require additional funds or dues to go in and use the facilities that you normally are entitled to might not be legal, and it certainly would create some concern among a lot of people. So, but that it's a possible option. We just haven't explored it terribly fully at this point. Another option is that the OVA would, I think John Felton floated this one, would match funds for the fitness center, and if they continue getting donations and all that, we would try to make up the difference up to maybe a certain level, and then they could retain John as the fitness instructor. And then the final option is that OVA would take over the job of hiring John as an independent instructor, fitness trainer, and OVA would then pay for it. So I hope I've covered all of the potential options we discussed. Very much like the fitness club itself, which is divided. Many people who go there say, I don't want to belong to the fitness club and pay $20 because, I've already paid my dues. And then there's the other half or so or more that say, yeah, I'm willing to contribute $20 extra per person and all that. So even the fitness club is split on this issue, and has been split on this issue since its inception. And we have generally the same problem here on the board. So what we're going to do now is have a discussion about it, and hopefully make a decision one way or the other. So I'm going to open it up for discussion. Who wants to go? Herm.
I have a question. First, I see Dave Northick's here. Dave, are you still the president of the Fitness Club?
No, I'm not the president. I was the spokesman. I gave it.
Well, come up to the mic and speak. I have a question I want to ask you.
Herm missed the last. You missed the last meeting where we did have individuals come
Well,
forward.
my question is the hours that John is working now sufficient, or do you think he needs additional hours? What's the feeling on that as far as the fitness club is concerned?
He is working currently 2 hours, 5 days a week, about 12 hours. And he also sees private patients, particularly post-op surgery, hips, whatever, knees, and can give instruction, and that's available to anybody at their own expense. But we pay him 2 hours a day or 10 hours a week. Yes, we have no plans to change that, not that I'm aware of. If Mike Harris or is any other fitness, I'm not the president of the board, but I was the spokesman on this issue.
And I, because we're going to make decisions, I don't want to preclude members, say, of the fitness center from speaking, that sort of thing, on these issues as we go along here. So you have special knowledge about your needs and that sort of thing. So yes, would you like to? Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Sinegoff, 7568 Oak Leaf Drive. I'm a regular at the fitness club. Bottom line, how much money are we talking about here? I mean, we're talking, John is getting paid by the club for, did you say 10 hours? 10 hours a week? 10 hours a week. How much money are we talking about per week? I mean, really, is there any reason why the OVA cannot help subsidize this gentleman? People are asking him questions all the time when he's there. He is extremely helpful. And as more and more people use the facility, because again, I'm assuming people are talking about expanding it, that means John is necessary. And I don't think we're talking about a whole hell of a lot of money here.
Okay, let me just comment that I got an email this morning, I think it was, from Valerie Hulsey, who's a member of one of the aerobics groups, and they pay something like $5 to $10 per visit to their aerobics, water aerobics thing. And she said, well, if you're going to do this for the fitness club, could you please also pay ours? Because we pay something like $80 a month to get these instructions from this aerobic person. So That's the dilemma we have. I'm just pointing out that that's what we discussed at the board meeting. Yes, Bob?
Frank, that leads into just what I wanted to say regarding this discussion that we talked about at the workshop too, that if we start off by saying that the OVA should in some way subsidize or hire as an independent contractor a fitness trainer, instructor at the fitness center, then we have to look at all the, in my view, we have to look at all the physical activities here that promote health through physical exertion, whatever, that have instructors. That could be in the water, it could be the lady who you just mentioned. And we're going to have to take the instructor at the fitness center, and we're going to have to, in that world, we're going to have to carve that out in such a delineated fashion that there could be no argument, or very little argument, that this is different from water aerobics or yoga or other physical activities within Oakmont that require the OVA to step in with funds. Now, if we're able to do that and carve that out as special, then we could use those same arguments to say that if you use the fitness center, you should pay $20 a year for club membership because you're going to be the most directly benefit by this. So I guess bottom line for me is I can't come up with an argument that says OVA steps in with OVA funds because of what you just mentioned and the fact that I don't think we can carve it out that neatly. But if we can, we could carve it out and say, all right, this is the rule. This is the OVA Fitness Center. If you're using the fitness center and you're using it more than X amount of time during the month or the year, you need to be a club member, and that club member is 39 cents a week, which is $20 a year, which is not going to strain anybody that I know of.
Well, okay, I'm going to state my position at this point. I'm in favor of OVA taking over the obligation of hiring John Phillips as the instructor, and here's my reasoning behind it. I don't know of many fitness clubs that have weightlifting machinery and treadmills and things of that nature that does not have a fitness trainer or somebody on the premises at some time or another in order to help people to understand how the equipment works, to spot people who are using the equipment the wrong way because it's going to injure them, who's not there to occasionally check the machinery and make sure that it's functioning properly, and that the machinery is not defective and will cause some injuries. It seems to me that all fitness clubs generally, have something of that nature available. I look at it as an attorney from obviously a legalistic point of view. My mind's been trained that way. I know that our bylaws say that we are to provide facilities, recreational facilities. We are providing recreational facilities by giving the central activity building for the purpose of fitness training, but we're also providing that equipment as a part of those facilities. So we are responsible for that equipment and how it's used if we're providing it. We can distinguish this from, say, the health initiative here that occurs in the morning hours. They bring in an instructor who goes on the stage, and the instructor is paid either through donations or in many cases at other facilities are paid by the members like $5 for each class or $10 for each class. It's true, we're allowing them to use the facilities here, but they're not using our equipment in addition to that. In this case, they are using our equipment, and I see some exposure to liability if we don't have someone there that kind of oversees it occasionally at least. And for that reason, I think it's imperative that that if the fitness club can't do it, that we ought to assume the obligation of the 14,000. And from that point of view, I'm distinguishing it from the other clubs that are asking for assistance.
Could I respond to that?
Of course, and then John's been trying to get in.
And I think Andy too, I'm jumping in. Okay, you've gone to the work of distinguishing and carving it out from other activities. Okay, as I mentioned before, those reasons could also be used to have people join the club and pay their $20 a year. That's obvious. Secondly, you bring up liability issues. Right now, he's an independent contractor paid by the fitness club. Moving it to an independent contractor paid by the OVA, does that improve the liability situation, or does it bring it one step closer to a liability situation for the OVA?
In either case, it's still our equipment, and we're responsible for how it's used,
Right.
and that it's in proper condition.
So if the OVA is providing the funding directly instead of a club, I would think that would, in the spectrum of liability, he wouldn't move it this way, less liability, he would move it this way, slightly more liability. What do you mean, no?
Well, yeah, come forward if you'd like to speak. If you'd like to speak? I know it wasn't you. She was saying.
Can I speak to this, please?
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's the board wants to discuss this first, then I'll entertain any special knowledge at that time, okay? John.
I've been listening to all sides of the issue, and each one has its own merit, and each one of us has its downside. You can argue all day whether it's moving to the left or the right on legal issues. I don't think that's the point. I believe in the basic concept of helping people that help themselves. $20 is not a whole lot of money. And the way I view it is, two things, and I'm kind of opinionated here. I'm not sure that the fitness club can't do a little better job in encouraging people to ante up to support their health and other issues as they use that facility. And at the same time, I think the way the board can encourage that, and I'll bring up the point I made before, I'd be willing to vote for some kind of an agreement with the club that the board matches funds. If someone puts in $20, then we'll put in $20 or something like up to a limit. But I'd like to see it, since it's a common goal, I'd like to see a participation from everybody and not dump it all on the board or all on the other committee. But I think that the board, if we offer to do that, if we vote to do that, I think it would encourage people to say, well, listen, it's like when KQED runs auctions, when people say, well, for every dollar you put in, we're putting in $1. People consider that and say, well, gee, if I put a little bit in, it's going to multiply. And I'd really like to encourage an all-encompassing approach to this, rather than the legal approach or this approach or an individual approach.
Andy?
Thank you, Frank. I think I'm in agreement with Bob, which would make it the second time today. I need to mark this date down. I also believe that in order to be able to do this for the fitness center, to fund a service that's provided just to people using the fitness center, there needs to be a real way to carve this out. As far as liability is concerned, if we're very concerned about liability and people using the equipment, then we should have somebody in there for the 14 or 15 hours a day that it's open, not just 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. Because that, I don't think, solves the liability issue whatsoever, because there's only a few people coming in during that time period. I'll go back to something I said during the workshop a few weeks ago, is that I believe the fitness trainer is a very valuable part of the fitness center, but I also believe it is a service provided to those individuals who are in the fitness center at that time, which is different, which is actually the same thing as those people who are in the pool needing an aerobics instructor, or the people in this room needing an instructor on the stage doing other things. So at this moment, using the fitness center as the first model, in my mind, unfortunately for them, just in my mind, I'm not willing to fund this until we look at this community-wide. With saying that, I do believe it's time that our community looks more globally at taking on the activities, whether they be physical or social or whatever, across the board as far as, you know, the activities that are going on, what the payments are, who's being an instructor, etc. My concern today with taking on the fitness center, if also with OVA takes on the payments for John, and he becomes accountable to OVA, that's a significant change. And I don't think people really understand or have thought through what actually transpires with that change, being accountable to OVA and who makes the decisions and what happens from there. More work-related activities could be added to his contract. Certain things could happen that would not be to everybody's best advantage. But going back to, I still think we need to look at this more globally before we start taking pot shots or taking on little pieces of this.
Okay.
I also would be against having the fitness instructor being responsible to the OVA, being accountable to OVA. I mean, if he's there, then he should, stay with the fitness club. And I was looking at the other clubs a little differently before, but I must say, since we've gotten some of the emails, especially from the water aerobics, people are now lining up to also want to have free classes, in their area, the pool and so on. But there was another email that came in from a gentleman, and he had talked about the fitness club. One of the things, apparently, people are not really aware of what the fitness club really does, that they're providing the instructor and so forth, and what all that they are responsible for at the gym. And I wasn't either, to tell you the truth. And, I have gone to the gym before, and not recently, but I'm going back. And I'm going to join the fitness club also. And I think maybe it would be a good idea for the club to beat the drums a little bit in the community to get some more funding coming in. Because I don't think you can force people to be members of the fitness club if they use the gym. I don't think that's possible. And it's also not really feasible because people use the gym to just go through to the dressing rooms and leave their stuff there and then go out to the pool. So how would you control that at the door? I mean, you'd have to have somebody standing there from morning to night, checking what are they doing. I don't think that would be feasible. So I think if the fitness club could get some more members, maybe they can stand on their own. In the meantime, I would agree to a small subsidy for a limited period of time, whatever that might be, but something much smaller than the full amount.
Alan?
I think important, I can easily differentiate out the fitness center from other activities. First of all, it's not a fitness center, it's a gym. And as a gym, it has a lot of equipment in it. It's weight, aerobics, and stretching. It doesn't have the other aspects of a fitness club, like Montecito Fitness Club or any YMCA of different classes, of different sports arenas, such as tennis courts. There, it's a gym. It's plain and simple. Secondly is the amount of use. I don't think there's any facility except the Burger Center that gets the substantial use that the gym gets. It is, and I can't remember the numbers, but it's way above any. What?
70,000.
There, the audience speaks up to 70,000, and I would imagine that could be even it could be even higher than that because people don't use their cards to get in, or if there's a couple going in or something like that. The point of it is nobody comes close to 70,000. In water aerobics, it would be impossible. So, and I agree with you that there is an element of liability and an element of just common sense, having somebody there to tell people that they're misusing the equipment and they can hurt themselves. And one who has hurt themselves on that kind of equipment in my past, I think that's very important. Stop that. I like the idea of supplementing the fitness club's expenses for the trainer, because that separates the OVA from the managing or being involved with the trainer. That's clearly between the fitness club and the trainer. I think John's idea is the best so far. And I would always point out, and you can, I think, physically determine who's using the gym. You can get into the locker rooms through the swimming pool area. You can, through the electric cards, determine who's using it, say, more than 3 times a year. And I would have no problem with having a mandatory user's fee of $20 a year. I have never been in a gym anywhere that was $20 a month. It's more often, much more than that. But I still prefer the idea of OVA supplementing the fitness club's expense for a trainer.
Bob?
Alan, you said many things I liked, but I have a question. This is just a question. And it sounds fatalistic, but if you supplement the fitness club's treasury to pay for an instructor, and the fitness club membership further declines, do you continue to increase the subsidy?
You're asking me to speculate, and I'm not very good at speculating. What we have now is we can supplement them with a few $1,000s and make it through. And I would certainly encourage the fitness club to more actively pursue membership. But I would hope that we wouldn't have to take it over. And I'm not sure what my position would be if we had to take it over. My position today is supplement their expenses.
My philosophy has always been that if the Oakland Village Association runs a function of some type, such as fitness, that we should be involved in maintaining and paying for that facility. However, saying that, we always run up against budget considerations, so we can't always do that. And this is the problem with the present situation with the supplementing the fitness trainer, or because you say we're going to come up with, we already have received requests from other organizations that they would like to have their subsidized only. However, I am personally persuaded by Frank's argument that the Oakmont Village Association has some legal responsibility to make sure that the equipment that we own and maintain is properly maintained and people are properly instructed in its use. And because of that, I would be in favor of some percentage of subsidy to the fitness center for that particular reason only.
Anybody else on the board right now? Okay, I said that I would take some comments from the audience. You wanted to speak back there? The one behind you, I'm sorry. I'll get to you.
Sorry, this is Dave Northwick. I'm amused, Frank, that you say you're trained as a lawyer and you think like a lawyer. I'm a scientist and trained like a scientist. And what scientists do are called lumpers and dividers. There are people who, like Charles Darwin's finches, say there's really one finch, but Darwin says, no, there's 13, because they all have a little bit different beak. So what I'm going to get around to saying is I hear the same sort of thing going on with the board. The lumpers saying, we have to consider all the single clubs and look at each one. And I'm saying, let's look at them individually. let's look at the fitness center and what it needs, what kind of money we're talking about, and not try to lump every other club in Oakmont into the same mix. Let me bring up the numbers because they haven't been raised. It's about $14,000 a year for the salary. Currently, the fitness center raises about $12,000, $20 a month for 600 members, $12,000. So we either need a subsidy for a while until we get this worked out, or to take over his salary. Finally, if you give the money to the board, which doesn't have direct control, but just writes the check to the board, I don't see how that increases that's personal, your liability. So I would like to stay focused in closing on the needs of the fitness center and have the board decide on that basis. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, right here. She's decided not to. Go ahead. You have the floor now.
Yes, I'd like to address the issue that Bob Giddings brought up and in asking the question of Alan. What would happen if the board subsidized part of John's remuneration and membership dropped off? I think that once it becomes known by the community at large that the board was that the OVA was subsidizing membership, our membership would drop. Because for the longest time, we've had about, going by the access numbers, 50%, approximately 50% of the users are members. So to the extent that 50% of the users are carrying 100% of the burden, if our membership drops, and we have to perhaps increase, if we try to increase the membership fees, there would be a further disincentive, which would cause membership to drop, and I don't see any end or solution to that issue. If you have any other questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Thank you. Yeah, Bob?
Richard?
Richard?
At the workshop, and maybe this is a different audience too, I think the question I posed, maybe it was to Mike Harris, and not to you, I'm sorry, that if the money was there, there would be no need to change the structure of the fitness club or the relationship with John Phillips. Everything would be cool if we had the money.
Yeah, yes.
So the fitness club, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but the fitness club, if there was a edict from on high that said, if you use the fitness club, the only way we can have an instructor here to protect you from hurting yourself or assist you in your recovery or assist you in getting better strength and remaining fit is for you to join the club and encourage people, and membership rose and the money issue was addressed, everything's cool at that point. Is any of that wrong, or?
I think it would be wrong if there's a perception that the fitness club is not doing its very best to lure in new members. We have events, we have continual efforts of postings, encouraging people. We explain to newcomers the annual newcomers event that John fulfills a valuable service. And as I said, for the longest time, 50% of the users have been subsidized. And to that extent, the fitness club is subsidizing the OVA because they're subsidizing their dues too.
Thank you. Harry, did you want to speak? After Harry, I'll take two more comments from the audience if he wants to speak.
Two things. I'm wondering if it turns out that John would be hired by the OVA, is it a given that he would qualify as an independent contractor, or he might have to be an employee? He can't be an independent. The other thing is, if it's so key that somebody be there to protect people from using the equipment incorrectly and blah, 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 then someone needs to be there 15 hours a day.
Yes, but back there. I think I said two more, so this is one.
Hi, my name is Carla. I live at Autumn Lane.
Could you lean into the microphone?
Yes, okay. I've used the gym, and my husband, probably 3 or 4 times a week when we're here. And we've been using the gym during our lives since we were in our 20s. So we know what we're doing. And John is a great guy. I've seen him around there. He's helping a lot of other people that perhaps aren't as familiar with the equipment. If I went to swim laps in a pool but didn't ask for any instruction, because I'm a swimmer, if I was, I assumed that the pool was supported by our monthly dues. And that's how I felt about the gym. You go in, you use the equipment. I never asked John for any help. He's a pleasant guy, I'm sure. But I don't need his help, and neither does my husband. So it's a little different than signing up for yoga, and the only reason you can get into that class is that you paid a fee to use the instruction. With the gym, I notice there's a lot of people that are pretty independent. You can tell they've been around the gym for a long time. I'm just saying, if his role is simply to instruct people, then not everybody needs that. If his role is to watch out over everyone and repair the equipment, maybe that's something that should be rolled into our dues, because that's what's done for the swimming pools and the tennis courts, unless I'm misinformed, and those people that use those facilities are being charged extra for maintenance reasons. I just wanted that perspective.
Thank you. Okay, yes, Andy?
I just have a question for Richard or for David. As far as maintenance of equipment, does John actually repair it? Because I thought I heard at the workshop that there was a gentleman named Eric who actually did the repairs on the equipment.
Yes, that's correct. He does not repair the machines, but he goes around and looks at them to make sure they're in good repair. But he's not capable, he's not a technician, he does not repair the equipment. We do hire outside contractors.
I said one more, so you want to comment? I'll give you one more out of the audience, and then we're going to have to make we're going to decide whether we're going to make a decision here.
My name is Pat Olive. I live at 7305 Oakmont Drive. Something that you said, Frank, concerning the liability, that you feel the liability issue is there as far as those using the gym. In that regard, could the OVA, if that is true, does the OVA have any obligation to provide an introduction to the use of the equipment to anyone that comes in to use it? And if they do, would that be a duty that John would perform? That would be perhaps the obligation of OVA to provide, to avoid liability of injury to people using the equipment and not being familiar with it or how it should properly be used. I'm just throwing that out as is that a possible way of keeping and helping the group and keeping John in play, but also a benefit to OVA too, for liability issues.
Thank you. Okay, further discussion? Alan?
When I was involved in the gym, that was one of the jobs that the trainer did, was provide an orientation on a frequent basis to new users of the equipment or different aspects of the equipment. So that does help.
All right. Well, anybody want to make a motion now? That's option number one, we do nothing.
I'll make a motion that we supplement the trainer's expenses as paid by the fitness center club, dollar for dollar up to $4,000 annually.
Is there a second to that motion? John? It's been seconded by John. Discussion. Bob?
$4,000 a year divided by 4666. When we could easily ask people who use the gym to pay 39 cents a week and take care of this matter and not have it on the OVA board, I don't see the logic.
It's illegal to charge a fee to use the gym. I've already passed this through an attorney. They're already paying for the gym with their regular dues. So you can't add this unless it's in the budget. That's one thing. But if you ask them that they have to pay specially every person using the gym this extra amount, it's illegal.
Is there anything else in Oakmont that would be illegal for charging to use the facilities?
Probably it would depend
Yeah.
on the
I wish I had known this
per
about
basis.
a week or two ago, then I wouldn't have said what I said at the workshop. So you're saying it's illegal to charge people for using OVA facilities?
Correct.
Okay.
Because it's already in their budget. That's what the dues are for,
But we're,
is to maintain the facility.
if we ask the users to join the fitness club,
They can do that.
and if they don't, and it continues to decline, we won't have the services of John.
Right.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion?
I call the question.
Okay, Kathy, would you repeat the motion?
OVA, this is by Alan Scott and seconded by John Felton, that OVA supplement trainer expense is paid by fitness club up to $4,000 per year.
Correction to that, that was a dollar for dollar, up to 4,000.
No.
Then I would.
That's what I heard, so,
Well,
restate it.
let me move to amend my motion, or I will amend my motion to have it as we will, OVA will pay expenses for the fitness center trainer in matching funds that the fitness center club pays up to $4,000, and our payment will be made to the fitness center club.
Is there a second to that?
I mean, can you simplify it and just say that you supplement the fitness club $4,000 per year, basically, or just limit it to 1 year, and until, they can find more members and hopefully do what's necessary. And then if they lose membership, well, there's then another discussion, do we need a fitness trainer, that sort of thing. I mean, obviously, we're not right now prepared to have the OVA hire a fitness trainer at this point. I mean, it would take a lot more examination. And so this is just for a supplement, basically, for 1 year, let's say.
Okay, I want to keep the record clear here. As far as I know, there's been no second on your motion to amend. What I'd request perhaps is to have both the motion and the second withdrawn, and let's start over with the
That's
Different
exactly
board.
what I want to do.
Okay. Withdraw your second?
I withdraw the second, so we can move forward.
Withdraw your motion?
Certainly.
Okay, now, go ahead and make your motion.
I move that Oakmont Village Association pay up to $4,000 for the next calendar year as part payment of the contract for the fitness center trainer. And I'll just leave it at that.
Is there a second to that motion? Is there a second? Elkis, seconded. Okay, discussion.
If you're going to make that motion, could you make it the next 12 months? Because the calendar year, they will be out of money.
I amended to 12 months.
You amended it? Is there a second on the amended? Why? Why?
Because he said calendar year, and they'd be out of money before December if we waited until then.
When he said the calendar year, I presume he's talking about the calendar year and the budget year of 2016.
He said next calendar year, I heard that.
Yeah, starts in January. They need money now.
Yeah, that's the budget year, that's also the calendar year.
They need the money now. They'll be out of money before then. That's my point. Next 12 months.
I amended my motion for the next 12 months.
Is there a second? Elka seconds the amended motion to change it to 12 months. Okay, discussion.
Yes, I'd like this, I hate to go through this again, but I'd like to see a commitment from OVA to the Oakmont Fitness Center to be based on their participation also as a matching fund for every dollar.
John, I just lack the skill to verbalize that. The $4,000 limit means that they have to make up the difference. And that's what the easiest way I could come up with.
But that's what,
If we say 4,000, excuse me, then they pay him 14, that would mean they have to pay him $10,000.
Any further discussion? Okay, we have an amendment first. I think we have to rule on that, right? Or do we just do the motion right now? That's clarification. Okay, so, yes, Wally, help us. God help us, right?
I merely offer a simplification. Just stick the word deficit in there. That the OVA will make up the deficit, any deficit incurred to the payment of the trainer up to $4,000 in a calendar year. And you don't have to worry about anything else.
Wally, come up here and sit in this seat, would you?
The problem with that is it removes the incentive then. So, what's the point?
Okay, how do you want to proceed?
My motion's been seconded, and I'm ready to vote on it.
Okay. No further discussion? Okay, I'll call for the vote then. All those in favor, raise their hand. Okay, fails for lack of a quorum. A majority vote. Okay. Are there any other motions?
yeah, I like Wally's.
You want to make that motion, or have Wally make it?
I move that the OVA make up any deficit in the pay of the Oakmont Village Association Fitness Center trainer up to the amount of $4,000 in any given year.
Is there a second to that motion? Alan seconded. Discussion. Okay. All right, I'll call for the question. All those in favor, raise their hand. All opposed? 4-3, passes. That was difficult. I hope everyone appreciates, it's not a simple issue. It's very complex. It involves the community. It involves, what Oakmont's done. So,
Can I have a clarification?
yes, Cassie.
Okay, so the clarification, because I can see this coming. So the clarification is they're out of money now, and you've authorized up to $4,000 in a calendar year. So am I clear to cut them a check for $4,000 before the end of this year to get him through the end of this year, and then the Oakmont Fitness Club and try and figure out what to do for next year? Because that's what's going to happen. Because you're going to dump me with the problem.
Well, you've got $4,000 to use, okay?
Okay.
I think when you get down to, there's only $1,000 left, come back to the board if you got a problem, I guess. I mean,
Well, I can authorize it.
yeah. You've been authorized up to $4,000, so.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Okay?
It would appear to me that they have to come to us for that subsidy.
They'll be at my door after this
Okay.
meeting.
All right. Okay, if we need to work out some details on this, we'll just put it back on the board for next session, okay? But let's give this a try, because we've already voted on it. And we'll go ahead with the next matter. Okay. Collection, non-judicial foreclosure.
Frank?
Motion on this?
Frank?
Yes.
I need to draw the board's attention to the recommendation by the collection agency that's in your packet. It's actually a recommendation to accept the settlement offer. So it's not a foreclosure.
Okay. Do I have a motion on that? Bob?
I would move to accept and agree with the procedure as recommended by our collection agency.
Do I have a second? Alan?
I find it that the appellant's reasoning specious.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Yeah, I got an easy one.
Please list specifically what that is in the minutes, Kathy, and the account number.
Okay.
And the account number. Okay.
Okay, one more item of business here. Unfinished business items, facility pool temperatures. You may recall the last board meeting, inadvertently a discussion, well, it came up, I think, under another topic, but Rick Ober, our maintenance manager, came to the microphone and suggested that he wanted to, have the pool temperatures set, and it would be such that he would keep the temperatures as best he could within a 3-degree range, and he had ranges for the, I think, the 3 different swimming pools. And at that time, a motion was made by Herman to approve that, and it was seconded, and it was passed, and then Andy leaned over to me and said, "You can't do that, that's illegal," because it wasn't on the agenda. And Andy's perfectly correct on that, it is illegal. Well, not illegal, it's David Stern says you can't do it, okay? So I put it back on, at that time I said, I think we may have done something that wasn't proper, so I'm putting it back on the next meeting with notice and an agenda item, and we will reconsider. So at this point, I think we need to clear up the record and clean it up, since what we did was unenforceable as far as I'm concerned. So John?
I move to ratify the decision that was made at the last meeting.
Is there a second? Discussion.
I just point out that on September the 9th, the west pool is only at 81 degrees rather than 85.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, all
It was
those,
an anomaly.
all those in favor, is there a hand? Opposed? Good. Future board meeting agenda recommendations, anybody have anything? No, I'll hold off on that. I was thinking about the member conduct policy, but I want to make sure it's all ready and done before we get it on a board meeting. No? Okay, no recommendations? Kathy, do we have any tasks? Oh, John, I'm sorry.
Yeah, perhaps the board should request the rest of the year off.
Yeah. Okay. Kathy, are there any other? You want to talk? Okay.
She wants the OCDC back.
Oh, okay, yeah. Kat, would you make sure that it gets back on the agenda, please? And any other committee?
That's my personal task. Okay. Yep. The only other thing I have.
Yeah.
The only other thing I have is that Kathy Turner is authorized to write a check to Fitness Club for $4,000.
Okay. All right, if no further business, then I'm going to adjourn this meeting. Thank you for coming.